This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your friend with a pussy magnet.
Welcome, my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Can never help myself. Anyway, we're going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up. You're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this, the Menang people. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content on Noongar country, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if you're all ready, let's flap and do this. Oh God, is there such thing as too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever, I'm leaving it in. It's my podcast.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up the couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
Ah, shit.
Far out, woman. What's got sand in your clam now?
Pew, 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 pew. Sandy my clam. All right. Hello, my labial loves. Welcome back. We're doing a Sandy Clam episode today with one of my favorite repeat offenders, Hannah Demoris. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Great pronunciation.
Sorry. You just say it so nice, and I sound like a bogan when I'm like, Demoris. And I actually don't know what the fuck we're talking about today. Han has a topic that, they've just been like sitting on for a while and saving for a Sand in My Clam episode. And Hannah wanted to get my authentic reaction. So they haven't told me about what this is going to be. And I'm excited to get stuck in because I'm sure I'm going to get a sandy clam over it as well. So what have you got for me today, Hannah?
Okay, so like Freya said, I sat on this topic for a little bit too long, unfortunately. What happened was, I'll give you the gist. I was driving on my way to a party with my husband, and I got a voice message. So I listened to it in the car, over the car's speakers, and we listened to it together. And immediately when I heard this voice message, I was like, fuck, I need to play this on the podcast. But I've waited too long, and my voice messages have since been cleared to make space. So I can't play it for you, but I will describe it to you. Essentially, this voice message was a sexual threat. It sort of started off like, hey, you fucking dirty bitch. I know how you like it. I know where you live. I hope you're ready for, and it was like really graphic. It was like, I hope you're ready for, like.
And this is just from like a random number? Like
just a random number. Like I didn't know the number. And he kind of listed like some graphic sexual acts and was like, I know you like this. I know you're a dirty bitch. I know where you live. Oh. And James and I, my husband James and I were just sitting in the car, like on the way to this party. And I was like, what the fuck? I was totally thrown off by this. Like it was weird because it wasn't this message that made me think it was like necessarily someone that I knew. It didn't sound like someone was actually waiting outside my house ready to murder me. But at the same time, I was like, someone, regardless of like if this is someone I know or not, like it really unsettled me. And what was really interesting is like, I think that the way that I received it was really different to the way that my husband James received it. So James listened to it and was like, whoa, that's fucked up. Like, I bet that's a prank call. And it was kind of like, water off a duck's back. Like he just kind of moved on. He was like ready to go to the party. And I was sitting there and I was like feeling really unsettled by this. And, it made me think a lot, which is what I want to kind of talk to you about today. It made me think a lot about how when you are a woman or when you look like a woman, sometimes you just feel really unsafe in the world. And it made me really angry because I was like, I'm not someone who spends a lot of time worrying about this kind of thing. But getting this really threatening message, I think it reinforced the fact that realistically, like, I am a small person. And if someone wanted to, they could do something to me. And that made me feel really, really uncomfortable. And it was totally not what I needed on the way to this party. Like, I was dressed cool, I was feeling good. And I was just reminded of this fact, you know, like, everyone knows that feeling when, you know, you're like walking to your car at night and you're like, okay, I'm probably fine. But also, like, I've read the news. I know what happens to women who walk alone. And even though it was not, you know, like one of these experiences where my physical safety was necessarily being threatened, it was still that experience of like having that deep sense of like fear activated. And you probably know what I'm talking about. Like, have you ever had that where you're, you know, you're like, la, 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 going along your life and something happens and your brain just like switches over and you're like, oh, I might need to escape from this situation.
Well, because it's like, it's even though rationally you're aware that this person doesn't actually know where you live and they're not there and you're not in any like immediate danger, like, it still hijacks your nervous system. It still sends you into fight or flight. Your brain still interprets that aggression, that sexual aggression, as, you know, dangerous, you're at risk, lack of safety. And it's still, you know, it tricks the brain into thinking that that's like, the brain still interprets that as a very real threat, regardless of if they're physically there. So like, it makes heaps of sense to me that, yeah, your whole kind of like nervous system just got hijacked when you were confronted with this like very unexpected, out of the blue violence, basically, like aggression. And also just like, what the fuck? Like, what have prank calls come to? Like, gone are the days where you have to go catch your fridge because it's like running. Like, what? Who are these people? What the fuck? Like, the fact that there's even people that think that that is like a cool, fun thing to do, and they have the urge or the thought in their head, not even just the thought and the urge, they act on that and they make a phone call to a random number and say shit like that. Like, what the actual fuck? So that makes me feel terrified about the general, like the wider state of things, like the world. Like, sure, they're not right there about to attack me, but there are people that are so like, yeah, scary and like fucked up that they would do something like that and have these thoughts and like voice these things and deliberately put these like ideas into a stranger's head and try to make them feel unsafe or, you know, like, that is just so bizarre to me that that's a thing.
Yeah. It was pretty much my exact thought. I was trying to understand like what the point of it was. I was like, okay, it doesn't seem like a scam necessarily. It just seems like threatening random people, which I really couldn't understand. And, you know, I think part of the reason it sort of threw me off so much, and I think you'll appreciate this as well, is when you surround yourself with people who are like-minded or people who are progressive or people who are kind and like support human rights across the board, you don't receive like threatening content like that into your brain, or you don't receive like threats from people. And when I listened to that voice message, it just made me think like, okay, regardless of, you know, the veracity of this threat, like realistically, the person probably doesn't know where I live. Regardless of that, though, I'm used to being in this beautiful echo chamber of safety. And, you know, I'm a pretty confident person. Like, I don't worry for my safety. I think we're really fortunate to live in like a safe country and safe neighborhoods. And, you know, like generally my life is pretty safe. But it just made me kind of realize that like outside of my little echo chamber where, you know, all my friends are respectful of each other, there's still actually a shit ton of people who think that it's funny or entertaining to threaten women. So that was like
get off
really,
on that.
yeah.
Well, because also if you think about the fact that like you are in a very like privileged kind of position, you feel pretty safe, you generally don't worry about your physical safety or whatever. Lots of people don't have that, and there are a lot of people that have had actual like in-person violence and aggressions and sexual assault and you know, that would be already like coming from a place of like, you know, feeling a lack of safety or like nervous system dysregulation. Imagine if they'd gotten that voicemail, or imagine like someone who has had a stalker before, or who has like some level of like mistrust or unsafety around a particular person in their life that's like pre-existing, and then their mind is automatically going to like, if you who kind of has like a lot of safety and generally like pretty regulated, if that made you feel like, then like imagine the people that are already feeling quite vulnerable and mistrusting and unsafe, them receiving that. Like, it's so fucked. It's just another, it's unbelievable. And it's like in the same kind of like realm as, you know, the kind of trolls online and the people writing these like horrific comments and like the cyberbullying. And because there's like a lack of accountability, there's like, you know, so much anonymity, and there's no fucking consequences. They can pretty much like go on a bit of a fucking power trip and just destroy people's fucking mental health and sense of safety in the world for their own like, you know, it's just mind-blowing. That fucking pisses me off.
Yeah, it totally pisses
Sandy.
me off too. Good. I'm happy that you are.
Mission accomplished. I'm like very adequately Sandy. Totally. It's very on brand. Do you know something else though that I want to circle back to that I really relate to is like, and it's pretty binary, but look, this is just a rule of thumb. It's a fucking thing. Like your husband, James, cis het male, didn't really think that much of it. Like, and you know, James is a sensitive, like caring, gentle person. It's not like he's insensitive or like abrasive in any way or like inconsiderate, but he just hasn't had the experience moving through life in the world that we have, people who have female bodies and who have experienced layers upon layers upon layers of microaggressions to assault, to abuse, to like, you know, coercion. Like they just, like men just do not have, you know, the majority of them don't have the same life experience and like lens through which they look at things from. So like, you know, the difference between your reactions makes a lot of sense to me. And like I would often have a bit of beef with my partners because I would be like, okay, so you don't think this is a big deal, but like I've picked up on this particular vibe, or I've had someone come up to me on a dance floor and like really get in my personal space, or like really be quite persistent, and it's just like making me feel uncomfortable or unsafe, or and men are just so willing to be like, to like look the other way, or to be very like, oh, she'll be right. Like it's I'm sure you're mistaken. Like I'm sure it's not that big of a deal. You're just overreacting, or you're just kind of like, you know, making more out of it than what it really is. Like he seems fine. He's nice. Like it's chill. And I'm just like, oh my God, fucking listen to the woman in this situation. I don't move through the world just willingly smiling at everyone, being automatically open. I have walls up that have been erected because of a necessity, because I am in this body and I've had to deflect so many fucking advances, so much seedy, creepy crap, so much like unacceptable behavior, so much boundary crossing. That now I'm not as likely as, you know, like some of the men that I've been with, one in particular, so smiley, so warm, so friendly to everyone by default. And wouldn't it be fucking nice to be able to be like that? Love that for him. But I've tried to explain so many times, like, I can't be like that, because if I smile at a guy that I don't know, there's a tiny part of me that's scared he's going to take that the wrong way, or he's going to turn into he'll stalk me around the dance floor all night, or he'll get the wrong idea and see that as some form of like interest or consent. And like, I just never know, like, you know, I'm almost like, I don't think like guilty until proven innocent, but there is a little bit of like a guard up just in case, and people almost have to like earn my trust, especially men, rather than me just like automatically giving it and being super open, because like we don't have the fucking privilege of just feeling safe enough to do that all the time, you know? Anyway, rant over.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
Hey, Babe Towns. So sorry to interrupt, but I simply had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that you've got to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in. And there you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies or discounts for offerings from guests who've been interviewed on the podcast, inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, and support from a community of labial legends. So head over to the links in the show notes and I'll hopefully see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
Okay. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. One of the things that stood out to one of the things that stood out to me so much about this is that the world actually is an unsafe place. And even though I don't necessarily think that me receiving that voice message proves it, I think it was kind of reminds me of another Sand in Your Clam episode that we did together when we talked about the beer cozy thing with the tits on it.
Yeah, the stubby
and it was
holder.
Yeah, stubby holder thing. Yeah.
Beer cozy.
It's like, what the fuck are these things
Canadians.
called? Is that what? I don't know. Where it's just like another sort of microaggression that reaffirms your place in society as men want it to be. And it was kind of reminding me of, one common thing that will happen when you go to a psychologist and you're worried about something or you're anxious or you're stressed is you look at your life and you look for evidence for that thing and evidence against that thing. So if you're a man and you've never had anyone sexually assault you or threaten you, you hear a voice message like that and you're like, okay, well, I've never had any similar experiences. I'm sure it's just a prank.
Just a weirdo, harmless.
Yeah. If you have had to, like you're describing, put walls up because you've at times been unsafe, when you get something like that, it's not just something that you can flick away. It's actually another piece of evidence that shows you that the world is a dangerous place. And I was really pissed when I was thinking about this because I was like, how dare this make me feel this way? Because I'm sure you can appreciate if you're trying to, work on yourself and, you surround yourself with more progressive people, you don't walk around the world feeling unsafe like a victim. It's awesome. You think feminism and equality and I'm confident and I know what's up. And then I was just so angry that something like that happened to me and it made me feel like that. I was just so frustrated that even though, I feel like a powerful person, the reality is people can still wield their power over me and turn me into a victim. And I thought you were saying, this is an example of me. I've been relatively safe for my whole life. So I can only imagine how hard that would be for someone else to hear. And, it made me think actually of this quote by one of my favorite authors, Margaret Atwood. And she once said that the thing that men are most afraid of is that women will laugh at them. And then the thing that women are most afraid of is that men will kill them. And when this all went down, it was kind of really just drove that quote home of here's this joke that's funny for this guy or his two loser friends. And for me, I'm oh, cool, I might die. And even though that's a very small thought in the back of my head behind, me thinking about the party, there's this little tiny voice in my head that's yeah, you actually might be unsafe in the world. And it's fucked. And that's it.
That's fucking fucked. Fucked. Yeah, and also if you wanted to extrapolate, obviously in the scheme of things, this wasn't enormous for you in that moment. But it could have been, and for the wrong, the wrong person at the wrong time, hearing these things, say if we're feeling unsafe, we're feeling threatened, we're feeling potentially a victim, there's research to show that makes our entire body language, the vibes we're putting off, the way that we walk, that makes us a magnet to predators who are looking for vulnerable people. So if you've been sexually abused, if you've been assaulted, if you feel unsafe, you unfortunately,
people can tell.
It's more likely that you're going to be predated on by someone who has managed to like pick up on that and single you out. Like I'm not saying, yeah, it's very tricky to make this not sound like I'm fucking victim blaming, but if you've already been a victim, it's more likely that you'll be a victim again because you just move differently, you hold yourself differently, you're expecting it a little bit more, you're kind of you're just a bit more vulnerable. And for these like really fucked up people that are like predators and that are looking for victims, they will choose the people that they can sense and see are more vulnerable, and they're more likely to be successful with like attacking. So if someone gets a voicemail like that, and maybe that day they've even had like a few other little microaggressions or like little bits of evidence, like you were saying, that they've been collecting that just reinforce that kind of belief that the word is not a safe place and people are out to get them and they're at risk, then like it is literally putting them more at risk because they're going to be like coming from a really dysregulated nervous system in a place of unsafety, which makes them more vulnerable to attack. So It's like, it's not harmless.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not harmless. And there are plenty of people that I know who I think would have responded really differently to this. I'm thinking even me, realistically, even me, at nighttime when I'm in the house alone, like I often feel unsettled. And I think if I would have received it under different circumstances, it really would have thrown me off. But that's me. I'm thinking, okay, at nighttime in the house alone, I know a few people who have unfortunately been sexually assaulted. And I think receiving something like that would be enough so that you would have to leave. You would have to, go to your friend's house, go to your mom's house, because the reality is these aren't just sort of like empty threats or harmless prank calls. They are symptoms of rape culture, unfortunately, which is a very, like overused buzzword, I think, but it's true. It's not just this thing that you can ignore. It's kind of, hinting at this massive underlying problem in society.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's a symptom of something like so much more sinister and like insidious, and that is kind of surrounding us, and it's pretty unpredictable, and we've always just got to be a little bit aware, like a bit on guard and a bit wary, especially as people in female bodies. And so, yeah, when you're getting like little, like I don't watch scary movies or true crime stuff because I know that like puts these ideas in my head and it makes me a little bit more like jumpy and on edge. And then I'm starting to like feel a little, I will change my behavior and I'll start getting fucked up by that, and they'll put me more at risk. So I just like don't let myself consume that sort of media. And so like, when someone doesn't even give you a choice and they just like leave a voicemail like that, or they leave a comment, or like they somehow access you and drop that little nugget of toxicity and like threatening kind of, aggression, like that's just polluting your brain.
Yeah.
And dysregulating your nervous system. And you have zero fucking say in that. That's just like out of your control, like non-consensual, like, it's just so fucked.
Yeah, totally. And our nervous systems aren't designed for that. Like our nervous systems are designed to process real threats. So regardless of, if you receive a threat that's real or not, it's still threatening and it's still gonna impact you. And, this is coming from me, like I've said many times, someone who really, I don't struggle with this particular problem. So I can only imagine how some of the other people that received this message felt.
Yeah. Like I've got clients who talk to me about their kind of sexual history and the relationships they've had, or whatever, contact they've had with men. And like some of them have literally not a single positive or safe experience in their entire sexual history. Like every experience has either been coercive or abusive or non-consensual, or even if it is like, outwardly consensual, it's really like disempowering and disrespectful and doesn't feel safe and isn't pleasurable. And so they've only got really negative and unsafe and disempowering experiences of men in their kind of arsenal. So then, receiving something like this is just like more fuel to that fire. Like it's,
exactly.
And I feel like,
go ahead.
Sorry, you go. No.
What you're saying just really highlights that this message doesn't come out of nowhere. It's like one piece of the puzzle of your entire life of being told that you're unsafe and that you're worthless or that you're an object. And so I feel like that's why, again, like with lots of these sand in my clam topics, we can't ignore it because it's not just one thing that I'm overreacting to. It's one thing that's kind of like the canary in the coal mine being like, there's a serious problem in society, you know?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And like we won't even get into like the side of it of like, you know, what's creating these sorts of men and how has the patriarchy in the systems created people like this. Like won't even go there, but it's just, it's all very sad and quite scary. And I don't really want to end on that, but like maybe if people feel like writing to us and like sharing a story to kind of like diffuse a bit of the charge that it holds for you, like if you feel like getting in touch and just being like, this thing happened to me and this is how it made me feel, or you just want to be heard or acknowledged, like we're super open to that. Unfortunately, we don't have like a fucking solution for this, but we just wanted to talk about, you know, like, what goes on, you know, and also validate people's reactions to that. Because like you don't have to be like brushing it off and being like, oh, that's harmless or it's chill, or like, oh, what a weird thing, like and beating yourself up if you feel a little bit like about it, because like it would be so understandable because, you know, our brain does interpret these things as real threats. So cool.
I guess
is that a wrap?
Yeah.
Grim. It's a grim one. Thanks for sharing though, Hannah.
That's all right.
Oh, all right. Well, see you next week, everyone. Lots of love. And that's it, darling hearts. Thank you for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. And in the meantime, if you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that, my dear, is a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism. And you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. Also, I'm always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, or guest suggestions. So feel free to get in touch via my website at freyagraph.com or say hey over on Insta. My handle is Freya_graph_YMT, and I seriously hope you're following me on there because damn, we have fun. Anyway, later labial legends. I'll see you next time. Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can buy some really dope merch from the website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. So if fashion isn't your passion though, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which is actually called Buy Me a Soy Chai Latte, because I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. You can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. And I also have a Sunroom profile over on the Sunroom app, as I've mentioned. And I also offer one-on-one coaching and online courses that'll help you level up your sex life and relationship with yourself and others in a really big way. So every bit helps, because it ain't cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me and my biz financially in any of these ways. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself. Saucy. I'll pop the links in the show notes. Thank you. Later.